There are moments in life that, when you experience them, change your perspective forever. They make you question the reality around you, as if the world you once understood is not quite as it seems. Some encounters are so strange, so out of place, that they leave you with more questions than answers. These are the kinds of experiences that linger in your mind long after they've passed, making you wonder, what if? Tonight, we're going to dive into 7 such encounters, strange, eerie, and thought-provoking events that will make you think twice about everything you thought you knew. Let's begin with Sarah, who, like most people, never put much stock in the supernatural. She was just another person going about her life. Until one evening when she and a group of friends went camping in the woods. They were miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but trees and the sounds of the forest. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, but as night fell, something felt off. At first, it was just an unsettling silence. The usual chirping of crickets and rustling of leaves seemed to disappear. But then, they began hearing soft footsteps, footsteps that didn't belong to anyone in their group. It wasn't the sound of an animal, it was too deliberate, too rhythmic. They all stood frozen, trying to make sense of it. The sound grew closer, but when they looked, there was nothing there. After a few minutes, it stopped as suddenly as it started. But no one slept that night. Sarah never went camping again. That night made her question the world in ways she never had before. Then there's the story of David, a man who had always been fascinated by abandoned places. One day, he decided to explore an old, long-forgotten mansion at the edge of town. It had been empty for decades, its windows shattered, its walls crumbling. As he ventured inside, he felt the weight of the building's age, the kind of silence that only comes with abandonment. But there was something else, an odd presence, as if the house itself was alive. The more he walked through the rooms, the more it felt as if something was watching him. The air was thick, and despite it being a warm day outside, a chill filled the hallways. When David reached the attic, he found something strange, a set of old photographs, all of them showing the same family, standing in front of the mansion. But one photo caught his eye, a photo of the family with a person he recognized. It was his own grandmother, standing in front of the house, looking exactly as she had when she was young. He had never known that she had any connection to the mansion, and yet there she was. As if she had been part of the family who had lived there. David left immediately, his mind racing. He never spoke of that mansion again. He wondered how many things in the world are connected in ways we can't understand. Next is the story of Emily, a woman who had always felt a deep connection to the ocean. She loved the sea, the way it stretched endlessly before her, the calming sound of the waves. One day, while visiting a remote beach, she decided to take a swim alone. The water was colder than usual, but she didn't think much of it. She swam farther out than she intended, and before long, she was surrounded by nothing but open water. The current was stronger than she realized. And as she tried to turn back, she noticed something beneath the surface, something large, moving with the same current. It was almost like a shadow, something massive just beneath her. She couldn't tell what it was, but the thought of it terrified her. She swam back to shore as fast as she could, heart pounding, but when she looked out at the sea, the shadow was gone. It wasn't until later, when she spoke to a local fisherman, that she learned of strange, unexplained phenomena that had occurred in that area for decades, sightings of large creatures, things that shouldn't be there. Emily never swam in the ocean again. That encounter made her reconsider the mysteries that lie beneath the surface. Then there's the story of Mark, a man who had a close encounter with something he couldn't explain. He was driving home late one night, taking the long way through a quiet rural road. It was a moonless night, and the darkness around him was almost complete. As he drove, he noticed a figure standing by the side of the road, its form barely visible in the low light. Thinking it was a hitchhiker, he slowed down to offer a ride. But as he got closer, the figure didn't move. It stood perfectly still, staring at him with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Mark's heart raced. He couldn't explain it, but there was something unsettling about the figure. He sped up, not looking back until he was a few miles down the road. When he finally glanced in the rearview mirror, the figure was still standing there, as if it had never moved. Mark never took that road again. It made him question everything he thought he knew about the world and the strange things that might exist within it. Now, we move on to the story of Laura, who had an encounter that changed the way she saw time itself. Laura was out for a walk in a park near her home, something she did often to clear her mind. As she walked along the trail, she came across an old, weathered bench under a tree. It was strange, because she had never seen it there before, and yet, it seemed oddly familiar. She sat down, and as soon as she did, everything around her seemed to shift. The sounds of the park faded away, and she was enveloped in a strange silence. The air around her grew still, almost thick, and for a brief moment, she felt as though time itself had stopped. Then, without warning, she was snapped back to the present, the sounds of the park returning. But something had changed. The bench was gone, and when she looked around, everything looked slightly different, as if she had stepped into another version of her world. Laura never could explain what happened that day, but she could never shake the feeling that time wasn't as linear as she had always believed. Then there's the story of Jake, a man who had always believed that ghosts were just stories, until he spent the night in a supposedly haunted hotel. He and his friends had booked a room in a historic hotel that had a reputation for strange occurrences. At first, everything seemed normal. But as the night went on, things started to get strange. They began hearing strange noises, footsteps that seemed to echo down the hall, doors that creaked open on their own. At one point, Jake was alone in the room when he felt a cold breeze brush against him, even though the windows were closed. When he turned, he saw a figure standing by the door, faint, almost translucent. It was the figure of a woman, dressed in clothes from another time. Jake couldn't move, his body frozen in place. The figure slowly faded away, but the chill in the room remained. After that night, Jake never doubted the existence of spirits again. Finally, there's the story of Claire, who had a near miss with fate. She was driving home late one night, the roads empty and the city lights flickering in the distance. As she approached an intersection, she noticed a car coming from the side street, seemingly not slowing down. In the split second before they collided, Claire swerved to avoid the car, narrowly missing it. Her heart raced, and she pulled over to catch her breath. But when she looked back, the car that had nearly hit her was gone, as if it had vanished into thin air. Claire could never explain it. It was as if time itself had shifted, or as if she had narrowly escaped something much worse. That experience made her think twice about the randomness of life and the strange moments that might save us from disasters we can't even see. These 7 encounters, each unique in its own right, all share one common thread: they make you question the world around you. They remind us that there are still mysteries, still things we don't understand, lurking just beyond our perception. These experiences leave us thinking, what if there's more to life than meets the eye? What if everything we think we know is just the surface of something much deeper? After hearing these stories, you might find yourself looking at the world just a little differently. Maybe we don't know as much as we think. Maybe, just maybe, there's something out there that we'll never fully understand. something that could make you think twice about everything.